His bank was one of the financial institutions that was collapsed in 2017. But moving on, what lessons have been learned to ensure that no local bank is bedeviled with this challenge? And what is it about ensuring that we build the right leadership when it comes to the financial space and the political space? What about those who've argued that banking sector cleanup, it could happen again? That is why we're engaging this gentleman who saw it all and he was personally affected. Prince Captain Amoabeng. He is the chief executive of the Defunct UT Bank, and he is our guest on PM Express Business Edition. Captain, how you doing? It's been quite a long time. But
I've been a bit out of circulation a bit. It was peaceful.
Yeah,
it's good.
But you've been busy, still doing the gym and keeping fit. I see your runs on the treadmills, and I say, I am a young man. I cannot do that. What keeps you running and so committed and that peace of mind after all those struggles and challenges that you've been through over the years?
Well, I think I have a very simple philosophy that you come into this world and you must make an impact. The first thing you need to acquire is good health. If you're not healthy, I mean, you can't cause the impact. And of course, after that is you need education, you need to be up to the people, you need to have love and care and things. So first thing is good health. And good health means sleep well, eat well, exercise well, diet well, and a whole lot of things. So I keep that as my mantra, and I do what is right.
What keeps you running? I mean, you are approaching 80, right?
No.
Still in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
I know I shared same...
I'll be 73 next month.
The same birthday month, I think 2 days or something.
Yeah, February 22nd.
Okay, I'm 16th as well. But what keeps you running? And I'm saying that you wake up with that optimism and vim every morning to even get to the gym, and you're doing the treadmills and the running and all those things and get everything done, even at this age.
It's because I'm grateful to God for putting me in this world, and I want to live my life and live it fully. I don't want anything to overtake me. Of course, anything can happen, but you don't give it a chance. So mine is to keep alive, and when I wake up in the morning, I'm sure the devil says, oh, God damn, this guy is up again, and I want to do what is right.
And do you believe that after 70 years, you've been able to do what you wanted to do, or still, there's still more to be done?
There's a lot, that I have to do, or I want to do. But of course, it's in the hands of the Almighty. But at least I must be fit and ready to be used. Because if you are not well and you are in bed, God can't use you. So keep fit, then God can give you a chance.
I know you've done volume 1, volume 2. There's volume 3 of your book that you're writing. I will be getting more details into that book writing as well, and why that details as well. But first and foremost, let's look at current things that are happening. UT Bank. Recently, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, at the governor's engagement at the Bank Institute, the Institute of Bankers made a statement that the collapse of your bank and other banks was as a result of an IMF program. What did you make of this? Because I know you know the backstory about what led to it and all that, but let's refresh our viewers' mind. What did you make of this commentary by the Bank of Ghana?
It was a very interesting comment. One, I had my suspicions that IMF had a role to play in it, but I couldn't confirm it. So if you ask me, I believe in what the governor said, that Bank of IMF influence.
Was the program conditionality that closed this bank before?
But then it's a sad statement for him to make, because it means the leadership in Africa don't have the independence and the will to do what is right for their country, and they have to be dictated to. That's the first point. The second point is that, so you want to take IMF's order to close local banks. Did IMF ask them to close UT Bank at 6 a.m. with Bank of Ghana official and the police in Rambo style to go and dummy the signage? Is that what precision by IMF? So who did that? I mean, the process was certainly wrong. Did the IMF tell them that they should also attack the other UT companies to to collapse the whole UT group, because that's what they did. They closed the accounts of all UT companies, including UT Holdings. Did the IMF tell them that go after the founder who had resigned 20 months before the closure? So there are a lot of questions, and I don't live in the past, but this is a current thing, and you brought it up. So I think it's quite worrying, or should be worrying for Ghanaians, that we appoint people into powerful positions, and then they come back and tell us that we're ordered to do it, without reference to how it's going to affect the staff, how it's going to affect the investors, because don't forget, UT Bank was a listed company, and we had about 15,000 individuals owning shares in it, and the government didn't address any of these things at all. Was that all under the instruction of IMF? So what is said is very shallow on the surface. It only exposes the governor's position, and of course it shows that the economy is very weak, and we have leaders who just take in anything that is ordered from the imperialists or the our developing partners, so to speak.
But Captain, again, whilst admitting the shortfalls of the IMF and the fact that they thought that there was a problem, what also stopped us from dealing with the inherent issues that led that external regulator from taking that action? Because some will say whatever that challenge UT was going through, it didn't happen in just day one. And there were several opportunities for you, together with your shareholders, to deal with that inherent challenge.
I don't want to go even into the details. Running the business is a risky venture. Banks in the US, in the UK, and every bigger banks all went through all kinds of problems. What did the governments do? They bailed them out. So if you have an iconic bank with a brand, indigenous bank, that's helping Ghanaians and things like that, with a great history. I think the UT story was very good for Ghana and quite recognized even outside Ghana. So my question is, do you just close it because they say you should close it? Because the IMF and IFC and these world bodies, all they want is to have better control over our countries. That is their aim. So they come into your country and they say, don't employ more people, sell state assets because they are not running effectively. It's not about rebuilding the country, really, if you look at those things. But we always go back to them. That's my fear. Because when you owe, of course, you don't have any say, and they tell you what to do. So it's up to us to manage our economies well. But to your point, I'm saying that even though UT had issues, they had to go into the issues. And when you are discussing issues with a bank, that's not how you close a bank at 6 a.m. with the police and everything. So whatever it is, yes, we had issues, but the position of the government will always be wrong. Will always be wrong, because the process was certainly flawed. And that's what it is. So even if you want to say you want to close the bank, it's a matter of saying that directors hold an EGM, this is what we think, we can't bail you out, blah, blah, blah. And it should be in a very civil, under civil conditions. Because it's a bank, a publicly listed bank, not somebody's bourgeois store.
Captain, sorry to bring back this issue, but as we try and move forward as well. So wasn't there at any point in time where the regulator tried to step in to offer that liquidity assistance, that it was done, and they didn't see any way forward, that the best action now is that close this bank?
So the best action wasn't communicated, wasn't taken through due process. That's all I'm saying. It's okay if they got into that decision, which according to the governor was an instruction from IMF, but how do you carry it out? That's my only point.
Because over the years they had tried to build the bank
They had put in a bit of
and
liquidity.
It wasn't working.
But we're talking to them. We had a restructuring plan in place, which they had actually approved or were part of. And we had a meeting about putting additional investors. And this meeting was ongoing. They wake up one morning and they have pleas and they close your shops and they sack the staff. And that's all I'm saying. So even if you've taken a decision that enough is enough, go through due process. This is not a jungle.
The question is about the approach.
Exactly.
I mean, I know you told me that you moved on, Captain, but are you in pain about that action?
No. I think we come into this world, all sort of things happen. I personally, I'm only one person out of, 30-something million Ghanaians. God has used me to affect lives, to impact lives, and I'm still being used to do the same. It's a phase, and I don't live in the past. The past is the past, you learn your lessons, and then you move on. But I wish that we would take the lessons, not just me. And if we have to close some other institution, we would do it properly, as per law and as per policy and in all fairness. That's all. But personally, I'm fine. I mean, I'm healthy, I'm happy, and God has blessed me, and I always count my blessings.
Stronger than a lot of young guys out there, even including maybe me.
I don't know.
But Captain, again, you talked about even they moving on to even target you personally. I knew that you've been in court and all. What has happened to those cases when they tried the legal route as well, targeting you?
Well, it started with investigations at IOCO, which took a year plus, probably 2 years. And then the document or the file was taken to the Attorney General's department. I was surprised that they will file charges against me because I left the bank.
For what?
For typically, there are about a lot of charges. Yeah. I don't know if we have the right to discuss.
No, I mean, there's a broader, not the
But the point is, they said
reason.
I had moved monies from UT Bank to UT Holdings. Okay? And I must have done it when I was CEO. But all investments have a maturity of at most 1 year. So in the 20 months that I wasn't there, every investment must have matured for the investor to review, renew, or take their monies away, or ask for rollover, or whatever. No one had complained that the investment had gone missing, right? And then when witnesses were brought, nobody had seen any signature of mine saying move this investment. And nobody had seen me carrying money to this place. So how was it that I could move investors' monies? But those are the charges. And I've been in court, after IOCO, I've been in court for about 6 years. But I think it's deliberate because initially, of course, the government wanted to win cheap points, but as the investigations go on, I'm sure that the judge will see the truth of the matter. And
the case is still in court, right?
It is still in court. I'm supposed to go to court on the 21st of this month.
And what are your lawyers telling you about the outcome of this particular
case? Well, every lawyer is positive, and I am extremely positive about not being jailed or nothing being found against me. Because I know what I did, and I don't understand. It's only in Africa that, maybe you have a child, you educate the child and nurture the child, and when the child becomes an engineer or a doctor, the child dies, and they say that the mother killed him. It's only in Africa. Because how we toil to build UT to 8 level, how can someone say that I have stolen from UT? I mean, really, it doesn't make sense. But Ghanaians want past stories, and we have negativity of mind most of the time. So people want to believe such things.
There is talk about an IMF program and all the rest. Do you also sense political interference as well as also a major factor? Because there were other financial institutions, some would say that were kind of in a subtle way assisted to come out of their problems. If you were a friend of the government in place at that time, or you had godfathers who were pleading on your behalf, maybe you wouldn't have the bank.
I was a friend in all aspects of the word. I was a very good friend to the Minister of Finance. I was a friend to the President. I was a friend to most of the people who were running the affairs. But I guess I was a different friend. I was saying, even though I was a friend, maybe they didn't like me for whatever reason, maybe some jealousy, some enviness. And therefore, when they had power, it's like, okay, this guy thinks he knows everything, he's achieved so much, so maybe we'll bring him down. I don't know, and I don't care. It's I sailed through it, and I care about the country and the people of this country more than me, myself. So certainly there was political influence in it, because it didn't make sense. And the order in which they made bail some banks out, formed some new banks, collapsed some, put some in court, it was very haphazardly done, to say the least. But either way, they have the power and they have to execute. And therefore, they decided to execute it that way.
Mr. Amoabeng, you became a standard for entrepreneurism, a standard for, if there's a Ghanaian dream, maybe we talk about the American dream and there can be a Ghanaian dream. You became the standard for an entrepreneur that can grow to a global conglomerate and all the rest from Cantonment. I mean, sorry, you moved in the fire outbreak and all the rest. And you moved on to a group, a holding Nigeria, South Africa. What, in one word, what happened or what got it wrong? Did you just take your eyes off the ball? Because I knew when even you walk into, I opened an account based on your motivation and then the zeal and everything. You walk into the banking hall, Amoabeng's number is there. All those things, you became a standard when it comes to every aspect of the financial space. The holdings, the properties, the insurance, and all those things.
Great story.
Where did you get it wrong?
Most of the answers,
did you take your eyes off the ball, the people around you couldn't just buy into your dream?
Most of the answers you find in the third book.
Yeah. We'll be coming more into this.
So it's a question that needs to be told or that needs to be answered. And I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned there. It's not that I changed. We grew, and the growth itself, managing the growth was different, was a problem. And incidentally, I read a book by an anthropologist called Yuval Harari. And it says when you grow any human institution and get a figure 150, you must reinvent yourself. Because at 150, and I was surprised he mentioned the figure 150, because UT Financial Service was quite successful, we built it successfully, and we're about 200, which is just over 150. And the thing I can say for sure, amongst other things, is that we got success because we had a great culture at UT. And that's one thing I emphasize for anyone who is building a business in Africa or in Ghana for that matter. But after 150 or 200, the culture will not permeate the system. And therefore, you need to reinvent yourself. That's what it means. So, to answer your story, when UT grew to about 200, it was okay. We were having a few issues, but then the culture was still great and things like that. But then, don't forget, we had to merge with a bank that we acquired. And that bank had a completely different culture. It had been run by Malaysians who were disrespectful of the people and ran in their own style. And then not only that, we also had to get in bankers, so-called top brass bankers. So we brought in top people, bankers, from all other banks, Access Bank, Stanchart, UBA, name it. And they also came to be the heads of the department. So it's a bit messy, a bit complicated. So we had an old UT culture, which was led by me, but in between me and the staff came people with their all different cultures, depending on where they came from. And therefore, the culture was difficult to keep that culture going, especially the numbers also had grown to about 400, 500. And so we lost our culture, to go straight to the point. We lost our culture because the new people, the numbers were big and they just came in. And therefore, even the culture of the old people changed. Because some of them would say that these guys came and they don't respect us and so on and so forth. Why should we be doing the things that, we used to be doing? And a whole lot of other things, including the IMF and the politics and operational processes that also got a bit confused. So everything is the third book. So it's not that I changed. It's not that you
went sleeping or you lost your focus.
In actual fact, I was
Amoabeng that we all knew.
I was sleeping less. Up to a point where I said that, listen, I think I've looked everywhere except myself. So at 63, I think I'm a bit too old, and maybe the fault is me. Therefore, I have to step aside and let a new person, a new group, come and see what they can do with the bank. So I looked at every aspect, including myself. So, and how many people in Ghana, in Africa, will grow their own business, and at 63, they hand it over, and then they leave? But I was more concerned about the people, the country, the investors, and I think I should prioritize them than myself. So I never changed, but we grew a system, a monster. And the monster had a lot of facets and things that maybe we couldn't manage. And it affected the whole group. And the point is, when the flagship, which was the bank, was attacked the way it was attacked, with politics and everything, then the brand was broken down. But UT was an iconic brand. It was a super brand. We were acknowledged as a super brand. But when they hit the flagship company, as in the bank, It affects everything.
What happened to the people as well? You talked about over 400 people.
Oh, more than 400. I mean, UT, by 2012, when we were at our peak, UT employed directly the group over 2,500 people. Directly, as those that we pay monthly. And after the government's collapse of UT Bank, we had to scale down quickly because there was a rush on UT holdings, and therefore we had to even sell off properties that were not even built or half built to pay off debts and pay off as much debt as possible. Up to now, we still haven't finished paying those debts. You know? So in any...
And how are you going to pay?
Any company, if there's a rush on it, will fail. Because you invest the business in all kinds of assets that you can't liquidate immediately and so on and so forth. So the company is still there and struggling. I mean, we call it walking wounded. It means you are not dead, but you are wounded, but you are managing.
I'll come to the plan of the recovery. Dr. Parker Sindum, and I know you talked about being a friend of a president then. I know you're also a friend to John Mahama as well. Parker Sindum has spoken about pushing for his license to be restored as well. Would you also subscribe to that push that UT Bank needs its license back to show that, listen, we were out for a cause and we can achieve it? Are you going to request for that, or are you going to push for that?
My answer to that is that the president, that is the current president,
John Mahama,
did make statement about giving the license of some banks that were wrongfully closed down, or the process wasn't right, giving them back their licenses. It's not straightforward, easy like that. So I don't want to jump the gun. Let's see what his team will offer, and then we'll discuss it. It has to be legal, it has to appeal to Ghanaians, and he's made a promise, and we'll see what happens.
He's the president. He has made that call.
Yeah.
Is this something, I get on one breath of this interview that, George, I want to move on. That's why I'm asking that. Is this something that you subscribe to, or let's move on, George, or you will welcome it as long as the details can be fine-tuned?
Well, UT is not just me, you know, so with me, I'm 72, I'll be 73 next month. Really, I don't even want to wake up in the morning, every morning, and dress up and go and be building a bank. If anything, it's a matter of getting the right team to probably make it materialize. So it is not just me. Therefore, I can't say, I don't care about it, and so on and so forth. There are other interested parties and stakeholders. So let's see what the new government proposes and the way they want to go about it. And if it can...
If they make that offer to you, you're going to accept it, engaging your shareholders or the other partners who, when you say, Captain, even if you don't have time, we had a case to meet.
And therefore put in the right team. And so it all depends on the actions that the government will take. But I think it shouldn't be about me. I'm not out to prove anything to anybody. As you said, I mean, really, when it comes to business in Ghana, I think people who don't hate me will say that, yes, I achieved a bit, and with the help of God and everything. So I'm not out to prove anything. The fact that I'm alive at 73, I'm happy, and I'm in what we call the halftime. Halftime is where you have to give back to the system. And that's what most people don't understand. That's why I'm writing the books. That is why I formed the P.K. Amoabeng Leadership Foundation. That's why I have P.K. Amoabeng scholars and ambassadors, creating leaders that will have a chance of changing the narrative for Africa and Ghana. Because I'm going to die, which is for sure. And I'm not going to die feeling good about Africa and Ghana. The Ghana and Africa that I'm leaving behind, it's sympathetic. And what can I do? The problem is about leadership. And if you have a problem, you must create people who will solve it. So I'm trying to create leaders with a different mindset who can solve the problem that we have in Ghana, Africa, and stop the brain drain and all the decline and the corruption and things like that. We have to give hope a chance. The only way to do it is to create the right leaders. So I'm giving my life to creating these leaders, and therefore the formation of P.K. Amoabeng Leadership Foundation and all that.
I'll be coming back to get more on the Volume 3 and also this Leadership Foundation as well. This is PM Express Business Edition, engaging the former Chief Executive of the Defunct UT Bank, Captain Prince Kofi Amoabeng, on lessons after the collapse of the bank and what is next. And there are some who argue that, see, there could be another bank sector cleanup. How do you ensure that any local financial institutions pick those golden nuggets from captains so that they don't also fall into that challenge. This is PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition, looking at lessons after the collapse of the UT Bank. It became one of a standard for the Ghanaian financial institution when it comes to a local financial firm that grew to become a group and expand to other countries in Africa. I'm engaging Prince Captain Kofi Amoabeng, if I can mention that way. Quickly on lessons, and I think it's very critical. Recently, in an interview with the governor of the Bank of Ghana, he also spoke about the fact that they should have extended the cleanup to the savings and loan sector. There wasn't money from government, they couldn't do it. I mean, you engage a lot of people, and not mentioning name, there was a financial institution, again, a bank, that the IMF insisted that it should be closed down. Government had to stand as point and say that it's an election year, they can't do it. That is also a local financial institution. There are some who are saying that it is just a matter of time. There could be another local bank that could be closed down. For you, what lessons from what you went through can be learned to ensure that what should we really be doing to ensure that that person doesn't fall again in this challenge?
You see, we have all the right laws and procedures and processes in place in Ghana. It's the application of it that lags behind. You see, when UT was going through its crisis and Bank of Ghana was helping with the liquidity support, one thing that I didn't understand was that it's quite clear in the laws that at the point where you see the bank is in crisis, you have to appoint a director on the board. That's Bank of Ghana has to. It wasn't done. I resigned as a member of the board, but Bank of Ghana, once the monies have come in to support the bank, you have appointed a director on it. It wasn't done. So they should look back into the laws and the guidelines and do the right thing.
That's the banking laws when it comes
yes.
to the approach and support. And
yeah, if a bank is going there, what has to be done, the processes that you have to go through. It wasn't done. And I think it's really bad for the image of the country to be closing down banks. And as you rightly said, there are a lot of smaller financial institutions that seriously, if you want to really look through it, they must be closed down.
Using the same rule that was used against you there.
Yeah, they must be closed down, but of course differently. The point is you have to call them, let them, and confront them with their situation and say, listen, with this situation, what can we do? Now, the point is if you're closing them down, it means the government must assume the liabilities of the institutions. That is why they are hesitating. But in terms of performance, some of them, there's no hope for them to come back. And therefore, you probably have to take that decision. But do it as per, and I say, all the laws are there, the process are all there. But then they wait because, hey, this person, he's the president's nephew, and therefore we have to be careful, otherwise we'll lose our jobs and things like that. This person is closely associated with this Nana or chief or this politician, all sort of things. That's the problem with this country. We don't allow the laws to work. There's too much interference. Sometimes the interference is even from our own relatives and family members, and therefore we can't act. So, for example, if the governor's brother or uncle goes to me and said, listen, this person, you can't touch him because he's one of us, that's it. Then they put the whole system aside. And that is why things don't work in Africa. You need leadership that will be fair, will be equitable, will love the people, will apply the laws, respect everybody. And we don't have leaders like that.
In terms of the liquidity support, do you think that the approach should change? Because there are some who have said that how can a regulator say that we give money to a bank and the bank use that money to set up another bank? In terms of even supporting financial institutions that are struggling, and it's clear, we've had some big banks here that were nearly on their knees. They're going through crises that should have had a regulatory intervention and action on them. In terms of the regulatory support, how should we go about it? That should we still go with the liquidity support? Should we appoint a rep on the board, management takeover? That is the best way to try and, bring these banks back onto their feet.
You see, the essential thing is that we are not going by the due processes. It's all by who is supporting this institution, who is behind this institution, what are the connections of this institution. That's the basis for taking certain actions. If you're talking about the liquidity support, UT had a liquidity support of 800 million. That is support plus interest and everything, Ghana cedis. And from their own records, they used about 2.2 billion to close down UT Bank. So somebody owes you 800 million. You use additional 2.2 billion to close it down. You don't get your 800 and you lose 2.2 billion. That doesn't make sense. But it's because I do not associate or get close connection to politicians, to chiefs, to traditional leaders, whatever. This is Kofi Amoabeng for you. I sack my own brothers, I sack my own cousins and friends if they go against the laws. And I don't go lobbying politicians. It's one thing that in Ghana you have to do, in hindsight, but I'm not cut out like that. The point is, when you start growing a business, when you are under the radar, you are not seen, you can practice all the good things. As soon as you become big, then the politicians, the chiefs, and your family all know you're doing well. You start having problems because everybody wants a part of you. And they think you should support them and be on their side. As for politicians, if you don't get on their side, you must be on the other side. That's even worse. So the biggest problem UT had wasn't the fact that we're having issues with liquidity and things alone, but what should be done to save such an iconic brand. And I didn't lobby any of the powers that be. And you know, when the UT Bank was closed and people came to me and said, oh, we should go and see President Kofi, this one is no good. Let's go and see Asante. I said, I believe the governor is the ultimate person, the Minister of Finance. I'm not going to see any of this. But that is how Ghana works.
But don't you think that your approach affected your stance and your principles? Even the Mark Zuckerbergs and all the rest in the US, they are pandering to Donald Trump and changing their rules, donating $1 million to his inauguration, all to be in the good books. These are multinationals.
You can do a bit of that, but in Ghana, that is what really runs. And we don't allow the system to work at all. I mean, you're talking about Donald Trump. He still went to court. He was still sentenced and found guilty on 34 counts of president. Can you imagine something like that happening in Ghana?
It will not happen.
Okay, so the difference is there. And the problem with Africa is that we don't allow systems, policies, and things to work. That's the biggest problem we have.
Captain, still on lessons, do you think that, again, if a decision is taken to close down any financial institution, we should think about the people, and the people? Because what happened to the workers of these institutions? And therefore, if anything can be done to save in America, the government came in to save insurance giants, mortgage firms and all the rest, even though they could have let them go. Should we think about the people so that...
It's not all institutions that should be bailed out. I mean, some institutions you must investigate. Some institutions, the people probably even caused the problem. But the fact is that if you want to close them down, the government must take up the bill for the liabilities of the institution. That's why the government is holding back.
Yeah.
So sometimes we talk about the people, but not all the time that you must be on the side of the people. I mean, Ghanaians who are working, some of them really are magicians. He's paid about 1,000 cedis. He's built a house for himself. How did he do it? He's stealing from the company. And therefore, if you have evidence of these things, it's not really the people you should go after. It's about the investors that you've exposed and the people, of course, and you should jail some of these people if you find them. You know, people should be investigated and sentenced by law. All the laws are there. That's the problem. But as soon as you start taking action against someone, if the person is well connected, you are the bad person.
Another thing that is bedeviling a lot of financial institutions now, and I want to bring in the UT lesson, is non-performing loans. You were credited with having the magic wand of recovery, but at the point in time, NPLs was your biggest challenge. How do we do it? And I look at some of the books of these savings and loans and banks, and NPLs is still a huge challenge for them. UT lesson, how should we deal with this challenge?
Now, you see, UT typically were taking the heaviest risks, loan in 48 hours, right? The only reason why we were able to do it was that we had a great culture, and we loved ourselves, and we respected ourselves, and we respected the system, and made sure that as soon as you trip, you are out. but then you are loved and cared for and everything. So apart from the processes, the people could be trusted. You know, I remember when I was doing some of the loans, I would look at the loan officer and said, are you sure you can bring the money back? That's all I asked. I said, oh, Chief, leave it for me, this one, this. And I will sign, and the money will come back. But then, as I was saying, when we lost the culture, you could not trust the people anymore. And therefore, some loans got really bad. And I was, one evening, I set up a control unit to actually check why the loans were not being paid in the branches. And one of the reports they brought, one of my trusted guys, who was an area manager, had signed a document where the collateral was supposed to be a story building, but when the control team went, it was a marshy land. And I came home and I said, I'm dead. If gold will rust, then what about the other people? You know? So we lost it because we lost the culture. It's very clear. Once you lose the culture and the people don't have trust in the company and what they are building and don't believe that it's their future belongs to the company and they are working for themselves, then you have a problem.
Still on this.
And most Ghanaians who go to work don't really love the company they work for.
Why?
Because the leaders...
Because you're not paying them well, the employers are not paying them well.
It's leadership by
Condition
example.
of service is terrible.
It's leadership by example. Most leaders think of themselves like they are chiefs. They treat the company like their own commodity. It's the wrong way to go. You build a company, and let me digress a bit. If you build a company, you know the owners of the company. First is God. That is why people used to pay tithe, or people pay tithe. Second is the government, because the government has provided the structure, the security, and everything, infrastructure for you to be able to build a company. That's why you pay tax. Then you have the people, your people that you're working with. Then you have the community. Then you have all sort of interested investors and all those things. But leaders in Africa don't think that way. Me, I'm a company. Who tells you the company is yours? It's not yours. So you put policies.
Invested all sort of capital in the business. So
yeah.
That's his business.
But your money alone doesn't run the company. The people who wake up every morning and come to make sure that systems and processes are done, they're all part of it. The government who has provided us, I'm saying, the infrastructure, the road for you to even go on to get to the office is a part of it. So if you take money and say, it's my company, I've taken money, you are a thief, because the company is a legal entity. That's what Ghanaians should think about. It's a legal entity as in it got its right to sue and be sued like a human being. So that company is not yours at all.
Captain, if you look at
if Ghanaians will understand that, then at least we'll be on the right track.
Still on the lessons as well, how do you see the banking and the financial space right now? Because there are some who still want to keep it as, or classify it as a time bomb. I spoke to one financial expert who said that, see, George, 10 years from now, or even 5, don't rule out another banking sector because there are still underlying challenges in the space. But first, let me just get your thought about how do you see the banking space right now? I mean, you've been there before. Sitting back, is the sector that healthy, or there are still problems that needs to be dealt with?
There are still problems. The big band, but the government or the governor, the only solution they have is that they raise capital. And therefore they should raise the minimum capital and all those things, because then there's a lot of equity sitting there to protect investors and things. But that is not the solution, because you need to build, let the banks have the capacity to build by themselves, organically and all those. Don't just say, I've increased the minimum capital. For example, UT, when we acquired a bank, we didn't acquire a bank to become a bank. We wanted to have a bank in the group. And the minimum capital was about $7 million, which was 7 million CDs. But as soon as we bought the bank, government increased the minimum capital from 7 million to 60 million. That's how come we had to get IFC, and then we also had to merge and all those. So minimum capital doesn't solve it. The point is that the processes must be followed and actions must be taken, and also the judiciary and all those things play a part. The problem that the bank have is that it's non-payment, right? Every bank will give a loan with a collateral behind it. And when you go to court, and I had, what do you call it? Recovery cases in court, 8 years old. And I tell you, I can solve bad debt or recovery case, I can solve about 20 in a day. Because the guy has taken the money. He can't say he didn't take the money. He brought his own collateral, to come and beg for the money. And the collateral is checked and everything, and put there that if he defaults, we are selling this. And it takes the cost 8 years to solve some of these. And there are lawyers who are experts in just delaying this year. So the banks have these cases in court. And the court will not make judgment. And Bank of Ghana's regulation says, after 360 days of default, of non-payment, we are going to write it off against your profits.
Yeah.
Now, because the system don't support Bank of Ghana's directives, you find that really, most of the assets that the banks say they are holding have gone bad. And they have to do also restructuring and things like that to hold their position and things. So it's a whole complete set of regulations, interdependency with other jurisdictions, and this, I would say, talking about that and to digress a bit, I would say that the Ghana courts should give a limit of how long each type of case should take. Maybe land cases, maybe more complicated, should take 1 year or 2 years at best. Debt recovery should not take more than 1 month. Murder should take this much. This litigation should take this much. And, you know, people have been jailed by tribunals and kangaroo courts. We didn't die. So we've gone through the process. The process is too lengthy. People go for litigation on land 20, 30 years. The two litigants all die with their next of kins continuing. So justice is not done. And time, all we have as human beings is time. And if you spend your time in court, you are being murdered, simply put.
This is PM Express Business Edition, engaging the former Chief Executive of Defunct UT Bank. He's coming out with volume 3 of his book. What is in that book? Maybe just a teaser, and also talk about his foundation and leadership as well. As you've seen, he's spoken about how leadership remains a big challenge for us in this country and even the continent as a whole. Be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Chief Executive of the Defunct UT Bank, Captain Prince Kofi Amoabeng. You've done volume 1, you've done volume 2. There's another book also coming out, volume 3. Mm-hmm. Why volume 3, and why couldn't you capture all these nuggets in the first 2 books? But again, how are these books doing in your zeal first to go into writing the story in books? How are they doing?
Well, the books themselves are not doing too well. Nowadays, to be honest, people are on their phones, social, they simply don't read.
Electronic books as well.
So the first book, the aim was to write a book on the UT. And then when we put it together, and I wanted to be educative for degree, those pursuing degrees and stuff like that. And we could not put everything in one book. We decided to make it 2 books. Then we could not put everything, because by the time we finished the second book, we didn't have space to even talk about the bank and its collapse and how we built and all those things. So the first book is called UT Story, Volume 1, Humble Beginnings. That's how I even started and came to form UT and the hustles, Kantamanto, and all those things. And then the second book was the expansion of UT, growing the brand and growing the branches, growing the subsidiaries, and going international and everything. So how to build a big company. And the second book ends at when we got into banking. You know, so then the third book, which I think is the real book that everybody must send, especially with the kind of questions you're asking me, is how we decided to own a bank, how we went about it, acquiring the bank, or acquiring a bank. Because, for example, in that book, I tell people that when we decided to own a bank, and me as the leader, I said, "Kukurantumi boy, nobody will give me a license." Because I looked at the landscape, and the banks in Ghana at the time, they were either state-owned, international banks, or state-owned institutions owning the bank, or former governors. So I said, this one will be hard for Kukurantumi boy. So I came to the decision that the only way is to buy a bank. So I went around and spotted a bank that I think wasn't doing well. and didn't have all sort of headquarters outside, and therefore we bought a bank. So a very interesting story how we bought the bank. And then we built a bank for it to become the first indigenous bank to be declared Bank of the Year. And me as Johnny Walker and Moses Percy, it's all there. And then the factors that led to the collapse of the bank. And our story, I want to liken it to, what do you call it? This ship that... Titanic. Yeah. A lot of things must all happen for a ship like Titanic to go down. And in UT Bank's case, a lot of things happened. One was the culture, some were the processes, some was even boardroom activities, Bank of Ghana's role that they played, and all sort of things. And I put it all together. So it's a very interesting book. But as in how the books are doing, the first book, I said, this is a book that everybody needs to read, UT Story, print 50,000 copies. You know, I think up to now we have sold maybe 5,000 if we are lucky. Then the second book, I said, hold on, let's just print about 5,000 copies. We probably have sold 2,000 to 3,000 copies. So the third book also printed.
Have you looked at more other new media means,
electronic
means, and all the rest, than the traditional hardcover book as well?
Yeah, we're looking at probably doing some audio, or we wanted to put it on Amazing, and I said, listen, Amazing will just squeeze all the profit out of you, so we got booknook.store, which is a Ghanaian whatever, Ghanaian equivalent of Amazon, and they sold some of the books, but I think because of their reach, they didn't sell too much of it. But at least we supported a Ghanaian company. You know, so Ghanaians don't read, and therefore selling books now is a bit of a chore. It's a real problem. But at least I'm leaving something for posterity. And people have talked about even making a film out of some of the books. I don't know how that will come out. But my point is that I'm sharing my experience, and I need to live a life of sharing whatever I've acquired before I leave.
Was it in the volume 2 that you spoke about the license acquisition? And I have met certain indigenous investors who they are struggling with the traditional banks. They want to get a license and all the rest. Again, what is your advice to some of these individuals out there, Ghanaians, and we know it, not to mention names, who had so much money, they think that getting a bank, is it all about the money? That why don't you go through the approach of acquiring a majority stake in maybe an existing bank as well? If it's about you believing in a local bank, I mean, should it always be that, oh, George Wiafe has some $2 billion out there, let me also own a bank? And what advice do you give to these indigenous Ghanaians out there who want to just set up a bank?
Let me broaden it a little bit. It's not just about a bank. A lot of people go into business because they say it's good business. But that's not the way to go into business. You should only go into business when you think you have something special to offer than what's existing, right? So for example, you want to go into a bank, like we wanted to go into lending. The thing is, it was taking people 6 months to take a loan from the bank. And that is something I couldn't stand. And I experienced it myself. And I said, can I do something to change this situation? It's because of love for people, love for businesses, and trying to improve the lending process and things. That's what business is about. You look at the terrain and say, this is not good enough. I think I have what it takes to make it better. So like you're saying, if you just want to own a bank because you want to own a bank, it's a useless and stupid decision. You should say that I want to own a bank, maybe a digital bank that does this and cuts time and does this for people. Every business might be solving problems for people. If it's not solving problems for people, but it's just that you want people to see that you've arrived, then sorry, it's the wrong decision. So if you want to own a bank, ask yourself, what is that bank going to do for people, which is not being done by other banks already? And that's a question I have to ask myself, because, you know, even UT, low in 48 hours, since we left that space, seriously, there's not been any financial institution that has been able to fill that space. People call me and say, Kofi, or do you know anywhere? I say, no. Mine is closed
maybe
down.
That pushes, motivates or makes a strong case for the UT Bank to return, even if you wouldn't be the board chair or whatever.
You must love people to take certain risks, but of course you have to mitigate the risk. Otherwise, you lose, or you make people lose their money.
Does these things challenge you? Okay, listen, I am done, but an Amoabeng protege who shares my aspirations and believed in me and was a shareholder and all the rest, it makes a strong case that we should fight and get our license back.
Yeah, and I'm talking about proteges. There are a lot of people, old UT staff, young people.
I bought some of your shares.
Yeah, young people and things like that who want to see that kind of institution back. And that's what businesses need.
So it should be back.
People don't understand SME. Even now they don't understand SME. SME, as you're going around, somebody says, George, I have some shoes that someone was giving to me cheap, 50 cedis, I can sell for 100 cedis easily, and I need 20,000. That's the SME business. If you don't get that 20,000, you lose the business.
Yeah, some have said that we have too many banks in Ghana. Do you share in that approach? Or as long as that space of loan of 24 hours, as long as there are still SMEs out there who are struggling to break.
I think what we should worry about is that we don't have solid indigenous banks, and the banking sector is owned by foreigners. That is my worry. You know, we have foreign banks, we have Nigerian banks, and we have how many? And the banking sector probably at best 15% in the hands of Ghanaians. It means our economy is not being run by us. That is what we should be worried about. I'm not worried about the numbers, but I think government should actually take specific actions to grow local banks.
Just like what Nigeria has done.
Yes. You know, so you can have foreign banks. I mean, if you wanted to transact business and the Ghanaian banks are as efficient, you want to even go and see people like you and then deal with them and get your business done. So we need to build solid Ghanaian banks, not be collapsing them all over the place. If you ask me.
PK, is it foundation and leadership as well?
PK Amoabeng Leadership Foundation.
Why leadership? Why foundation? Okay. Tell me more about, or some will say that should Amoabeng be giving us, mentoring us on leadership, looking at past challenges? Yeah.
Because I have all the experiences. I built a great company, most respected company, most respected CEO, people can't forget that. They can't take it.
Here and there.
And did what?
You're winning awards here and there.
Oh, you remember those days?
Yeah,
you know?
I do.
You know, so you can't take that away from whether you like it or not. And my thing is to actually share those experiences, both the good and the bad. So people will say, this is what the guy did and was successful. This is one of the things that he said was bad, and so on and so forth. Now, the main issue here is that when you're talking about leadership, I have reflected on Ghana's situation. And I'm not a young man anymore, and I've seen it all. The problem with Ghana and Africa is that the mindset of the people is wrong. We have a wrong mindset. I mean, what kind of people will even go and build houses for dead people and put them in it? What kind of people? I can give a talk, it will take about a whole hour to talk about the wrong mindset of the people. Now, because the mindset of the people is wrong, you need a leader who will change that mindset. And you change it by laws and rules and application of these policies and things like that, right? So what I'm saying is that we are poor and we are not developed simply because we don't get the right leaders. In the end, you can say mindset, you can say that, but in the end, it's because we don't have the right leaders who will say, hey, this is the vision, this is where we're going. And you must toe the line, and I'm going to lead by example. So if you identify the problem as one of leadership, my point is that when you have a problem, you see an expert. If you have a toothache, you see a dentist. And the dentist has been trained to become a dentist. So if our problem is about leadership, we need to create the kind of leaders who understand the people and the system and apply what is right to change our narrative. We can't just hope that we get a good leader. We can't. But that's what we're doing. Go to church and pray. God should build us.
The society getting good leaders and not just at the top, even at the local level, at the financial space. Are we getting the required leaders?
No. As a matter of fact, the trend is different. We are now getting people who are learning the wrong things. To the point that, George, you agree with me. If you live righteously in Ghana, you are in trouble. Because you have to manage your pay and work and cut your expenses. Your wife may even leave you unless you get extra income from somewhere.
I mean, you were a businessman, you are still a businessman. How I was asking myself how a principled businessman survived in Ghana without not cutting corners and all the rest. How did you survive?
You can do it. But the point is, that is why I'm trying to train leaders how to do it. Because if you don't get the right leaders who will do the right things, this narrative that we have, which is horrible, will never change. And talking about that, I think I would dare to say that the new leader that we have in Mahama, the fear that I have is the people who are going to hold him back from achieving the vision that he has. If he has the right mindset and will cut through them, because that's why I trust that he's been there before. That way you will see the detractors and things like that. And we need to be delivered for once. And I think this is our
You think the people around him will be his biggest challenge?
Of course. Because how did he get there? With the support and money and the machinery of the party and all those. They're all going to get at him, and he must give in to some of their
You think
wishes.
he's going to deliver? You know him personally. You think that the second coming of John Mahama, he can deliver?
He's a good person. So was I. So
good persons
be a good person, you can still fail.
You can fail.
But because he's been there before, I think he knows what causes failure. And therefore, he's a better person to handle this at this time.
What is your advice to John Mahama?
Well, he's been there before. I don't have to advise him. I haven't been head of state before. He's been head of state before, and he knows why he earned the bad name that he earned at the time. And he knows why people want him to come back. And he's made pledges to the people. All he has to do is to put the people first. But that's difficult to do. And we're waiting to see how he handles that.
You think that, and sorry I asked that question, but do you think that the people, the immediate people around him could cause him to deliver on his mandate or cause him to fail?
It depends on them. I mean, he appoints people. He's supposed to trust them, give them the authority to run the place. If they go and they do the opposite, then it comes against him, because at the end of the day, he has the responsibility of changing the narrative of this country. So the appointments will also be influenced by people. And even though
several people lobbying, pushing him here and there.
And party people saying there's a guy who has done so much, and so on and so forth, but you don't know what's in their minds. But he has to be strong enough to sack. When reports get to investigate and sack. See, the thing that people are afraid to do or find it difficult to do is applying the laws. Because the pressures on you when you want to apply the law is too much. They will say that, no, how can you do it to him? But for him, you wouldn't have been here. For him doing this and so forth, then it's difficult. But you have to be disciplined to a fault. And being disciplined to the fault doesn't give you votes.
On your leadership institute, let me tap into your leadership acumen and principles and all the rest. Where do we draw the line moving from the party that brought you into power, that marketed you, that worked hard for you, to a statesman where you need all kinds of solid hands to help you deliver on your mandate? How does he draw the line between there's a good person and there's another Amoabeng who's in Honolulu managing a big financial institution? Let's bring that guy in here. Compared to that man who is here, who worked with him in the trenches and all the rest, you're no longer a leader of a party, you are a head of state. Amoabeng Leadership Institute, what advice will you give to John Mahama?
It's a tough one. You know, the party brought him to power, so the party will always have that kind of influence. And the party has debts to pay. The party has favors that they have to return. And so we must do a balancing act somehow. You can't throw the party and all the people around you away and bring just experts, raw experts. So you have to do a balancing act. Take some experts, take some of the people. Some of the people around him are really good. But then people are not remunerated well most of the time. And when you take even an MP, the money is used to campaign to come to power. What he's getting as an MP is not enough. So you put him in a position to deliver because he's an expert. He has to still think about the debts that he has and has to pay. You know, so it's a very complicated thing. And they can't say because I want to serve my country and things, I'll let people come and hustle me at home that I owe them debts and things like that. So it's a difficult balancing act he has to put together. And we should wish him all the best. At the end of the day, we should see Ghana marching forward.
Mr. Amoabeng, based on what was said at the appointment committee and even what you and I know, it is likely that very soon this governor might move on. And even the finance minister, they talked about the fact that the president has to appoint somebody who shares in aspirations and visions and all the rest. What would be your advice to whoever takes over as governor of the Bank of Ghana?
You see, the problem with such appointments is that governments tend to appoint people who are supposed to be knowledgeable, with experience, and supposed to be independent, but they appoint people that they can actually influence. So the people that they appoint are actually made like puppets. And because that position is really glorious, they must do the wishes of the government. So it comes with a leader who is disciplined to say that, listen, I need my financial sector to be on sound footing, and certainly take the advice of the governor seriously and leave him alone as much as possible. But it's difficult to do because, let's say, in politics, you need to pay certain bills, you need to print money. And your governor says it's deadly to print. I mean, he can't tell you that because you need it to stay in the position or to keep the country, the leadership of the country. So again, it's difficult. But my point is that appointments, when you make those appointments, you allow them to use their expertise while you appointed them and not interfere too much in it. Because if you interfere, then it's like, but the governments tend to appoint people that they can manipulate. I mean,
so no matter how good the person is.
To give me a post, I don't think
they appoint you as an escort.
No. I'm not a banker. So, yeah. I mean, what I mean is that a government will find it difficult to give me a post. Why? Because you don't give me a post and come and tell me what to do. And I'll tell you that, Mr. President, you know.
So whoever takes over should be independent?
Yes, you have to give me exactly. That's the way to lead. Because you are serving all the people, not the party, and not even the president per se. And that's a difficult thing to do.
Captain, as you try and wrap up, still tell me more about this leadership, the Foundation Institute, how it's working, how people can come up and pick up the nuggets to influence the financial space and even the economy as large.
Thank you very much. So, as I said, we identified that the biggest problem we have in Ghana and Africa is the lack of good leaders. So we want to train some leaders and put them in the system. So we talk to schools, we have all sort of interviews and lectures and things, but the flagship program is the Kofi Amoabeng Scholars Program, where we take 20, last year we took 20, we take another 20. And these 20 people, we actually take them through a program of intentional mentorship, take them through boot camps, give them military training, and let them know who Kofi Amoabeng is and the values that I stand for. And it's mostly centered on the values that they have. Because we have leaders, we have all sorts of leaders, but what is lacking is the right values. And the values, I mean, you must be God-fearing, you must have respect for everybody, you must be a man of integrity or a woman of integrity and be honest with people. You must actually care and love for your neighbor. That's why I'm saying you have to be God-fearing. But the things that our leaders do, they lack all these values. And that's what we're trying to instill in these young people. And I tell you, after the first cohort, when they graduated, talking to them, I sleep better. Because I can see that I've done something. I've changed the mindset of some of these people, and they are bound to become better leaders. And we have the second group that is coming. But we take them through all sorts of things and let them understand my style of leadership. It's about values, about loving people, it's about respecting people, it's about respecting systems and making sure that people are treated equally, and so on and so forth. And it's a fantastic thing. What I want to do going forward is to scale up. Because 20 a year is not that big. But of course, it's about financing. But I've got some people who believe in these ideals and are supporting, because it's quite expensive.
And that will come to my question about our partners and investors. Welcome to anyone who shares in the vision of
definitely.
And how do we come on board to support?
Definitely. Sometimes it's just the resources. Some are very knowledgeable. Some of them give them. We have a mentor-mentee relationship and how it should be structured, and so they get lectures in that. Some even give us lectures. Kofi came to talk to them about how to MC and how to behave at function, even etiquette at dining table. We give them the whole package, and that takes about a year. So anybody who wants to help, it can be in terms of resources, not just cash. It takes us roughly about 40,000 cedis per scholar.
Okay.
You know, so to give you an idea how much we're trying to raise.
And there's a foundation that we can reach social media and all the rest that they want to get.
Yeah, we are on all social media handles, and we feed people with the progress of the scholars and so on and so forth. And we get people calling from even outside the country to say they want to help. Recently, there was a guy who said, I'm not there, but I'm really enthused about this whole thing, and I'm sending 5,000 to you guys for whatever you can do. So we really need funding to sustain it and also to scale up. I wish we could eventually have an academy where, because you see, my hope is that we should put a lot of these leaders that we groom in the system. Some will be converted and therefore may lose the values we're giving them. But the numbers gives us the chance that we need. Because see, we all don't want to abandon hope. The only way to give hope a chance is to have such leaders in the system, so that if they should have the chance of being in a leadership position, they can change the narrative. So we need to give hope a chance, and this is to all Ghanaians and Africans. That's the only way. Let's create leaders of good value, leaders who are not after just material things, but acquire material things to really use it to impact people. That's why we're here. You come to the world to acquire worldly things and use it to change the story for a better story.
The volume 3, when is it coming out and when people can get access?
I'm trying to launch it on my birthday, which is next month. Or around that. So by the end of February, hopefully we'll have the third book. But that would be very interesting. Like you are dying to know what killed UT Bank. It's all be there.
As a birthday mate, I need to come on board and support.
Of course, of course. We would love to see you there.
Let's look at for that budding entrepreneur out there that is looking up to you. What are your basic advice to these budding entrepreneurs out there who is also thinking about a UT group maybe 20 years from now? Those young guys in the banking space who are open to a lot of things that some of them are not being that disciplined. Because a recent Bank of Ghana report has shown that majority of the thefts, the pilfering, and the crime, can use that, is coming from bank staff. First, let me get your thoughts on that. I mean, they use this story. I mean, it's surprising that there are some who put it on salary and compensation. That report has come out that has shown that these pilfering and losses are carried out by bank staff.
And it's quite prevalent. It's happening in a lot of the banks.
Happening in UT?
Yeah, they did plenty.
People were
stealing. Let me tell you this interesting story. So, a staff of mine who was stealing from wherever he was had a girlfriend and bought a car for the girlfriend. Can see the level of stealing.
Yeah.
So I had this beautiful girl that I was trying to go after, and she asked me for a house. And I said, what kind of question is that? How do I buy your house? For having a relationship with you or something? He said, I'll buy your stuff, even your stuff. I bought a car for the girlfriend. See, so there's a bit of competition, trying to woo all sort of girls and trying to build because this one has built and things. But there's a lot of stealing and pilfering the banks. And the way they do it, it's in, they collude with the clients. One way of doing it is to collude with the clients. And the client's project will be written a good, I mean, after all, the decision makers only look at a report. But you have the people who are actually writing the reports and inspecting collaterals and checking cash flows and all those things. And if they don't report well, the clients will say that this month payment, please, I need to do this. So you let me give you something on the side and so on and so forth. Or if you approve the loan, I'll give you so much. And sometimes it happens even at the very top, where they take monies from the clients. So it's quite prevalent, but basically it's because we are losing our values as a people.
It's not compensation.
No, it's about values.
That young guy being paid well and everything, he would not be tempted to be.
But to your question as a budding businessman What should he do?
But I'll come to that. But just let's wrap up on this bit about the fact that is compensation not a factor?
It is a factor.
If you are paying them
it's
well,
a factor. Of
a lot
course.
of them are on contract,
and
a lot of them are not being paid well.
Put them on incentives, social incentive packages, which depends on their performance or an evaluation of their performance. There's a whole lot of things that you can do about it, you know. But the point is that Ghanaians are in competition with themselves to get what they don't deserve. People don't even have to wait because they see people come out of university, go into politics, and become millionaires all of a sudden. So even, and that affects those who are working in banks and in schools and in whatever, because they also want to be like these people who've gone into politics. So our values are being shaped by the wrongdoers. And a lot of people, that's why when they can't catch up with them, then they want to go outside the country.
Captain, you shared the story as well. Let me share a story with an interview I had with the CEO. And when we finished, and was on the balcony, and there's a big institution, a huge one. I said, George, I know how much I pay my staff. I don't believe that their salaries could be getting them these cars that is on the car park. And he was struggling to understand where they were getting the money to own these cars.
Ghanaians are magicians, but it's not that they are magicians, they are stealing. And I was in an interview and I said, generally, we are evil and we are bad. And people condemn me, but a lot of people who are in business say it's true. Because you see, you should wait to gain experience and grow. That is how we were brought up, those of us who are old. For example, when I joined the army, I qualified for motorbike as a lieutenant. And a lieutenant using a car was unheard of. And nobody was trying to, no captain, lieutenant was trying to even own a car. But then things have changed with the revolutions and things that you see other ranks driving Mercedes and other things. So Ghanaians are in competition and they want to get there like tomorrow.
Finally,
doesn't matter how much you want to do
on the budding entrepreneurs, what advice do you have for them? Because the struggles will come. There are some who say that a business or Ghanaian business will not go beyond 10 years or 5 years and all the rest. What advice do you have for these entrepreneurs out there who want to be or grow or have a UT group maybe in 20 years from now? The challenges, the struggles, especially those in the financial space as well.
There's a lot I can say about that, but let me just say that, one, they must learn to be humble. You know, people just value themselves for no reason. You are one out of 7.8 billion human beings. One, which means you are zero, really. So be humble, but you are in this world to impact this world positively. That's why you were created. The only reason why a creator will create something is because he foresees that this creation will add on to what I have. So we are in this world to only make the world a better place. And it's not about us. It's about what we can acquire and what we can use what we've acquired to change the world and make it a better place. If you're a bad entrepreneur, what you can do is to respect all the staff equally. And the way to do it is to put policies and systems in place and educate them on it. And to create the right values which will generate the culture I'm talking about. And you have to live it by yourself. Live that culture. Let them know that this guy is transparent, this is what he means, he has a heart for us, he loves us, and he loves our clients and everything, and he's building, and this is where he's going, the vision should be clear, and. What I find mostly, as I was saying, is that they think I have given you a job, and therefore they don't even respect the person because I have given you a job. It is not that way, because you give me a job because he's coming in as a consultant, as an expert, even the cleaner is an expert. To come and bring their expertise to help you guys get to the vision that you're going to. And we need that right mindset, but we don't have with most budding entrepreneurs. I have a lot of people that I meet and they say they want me to mentor them. They start a business, they see small money, maybe they get a grant. Oh, they leave the business, and then they buy a car, and all of a sudden they are the nightclubs, and by the time the kind of business is gone. The money you've gotten as a grant to build the business for you and your investors and your people to benefit from, you alone take the money and go and spend it. But so they have to be humble and not just one person. They have to lead by example, and they have to actually carry the team along the vision. And the vision, even fashioning the vision, should be a teamwork. At UT, we did a strategy session every 6 months. So we're all aligned, and we decide where we want to be in the next 3 years, the next 6 months, and when we leave, it is our joint decision, and what we will get out of it is all very clear. I didn't just vision what UT should be, and I did it alone and pulled up. No. Most of it came from the staff.
Teamwork.
Yeah, most of it came from them.
Indeed, we'll be looking forward to the 3rd volume, and I know not every nugget that we got it here, so we'll all be waiting for it to see what he has to tell us in the volume 3 of the UT Bank story. Will there be a volume 4?
Volume 4 will be about the story of PK, because there's a lot about me that
you haven't said.
A lot about me.
You got it here first on PMX Business Edition as you engage with Captain Prince Kofi Amoabeng on lessons and UT Bank post the closure and what you have to do to ensure that indeed you survive in these challenging times. This has been PMX Press Business Edition. Have a great day.